No, this is so exciting. We've been planning for this for
Quite a
way
while.
too long. Yeah,
I
it
think,
didn't quite work out.
yeah, so I guess let me introduce myself since I'm a special guest on your channel. Thank you for having me. For those who don't know, my name is Marissa. My channel is Margins of Marissa. And Leah and I are in a Discord server where we talk about all the bookish things. And we did a buddy read of Rebecca. And that was back in like February, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so happy we really decided to do this because I think we have fairly different opinions on a book, which is cool. But also I feel like Rebecca especially it's very, very has themes that are very relevant for recent developments as well. So I'm really happy that we are doing it, and thank you for joining. Thank you for taking time. I know it's a little early for you.
It's not that bad.
I mean, it's a Saturday, so
Yeah.
yeah. So we thought we're gonna bring you along. And first talk a little bit about what we rated the book, and I don't think we talked about that yet. I don't think we told each other the
Yeah.
rating yet.
Yeah, actually, we haven't really like had any sort of discussion on
No.
what we thought. We
Yeah.
so this will be interesting to see for both
We
of
were
us.
just like, let's buddy read it. Okay, and then we read it. And
Yeah, like asynchronous buddy reading.
yeah. So do you want to go ahead and tell your rating?
Sure. So I ended up rating this 4 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy it, which I think we had kind of talked that the beginning does drag a little bit. It's quite a slow book, but I found that when it picked up, I was really in it. But to be honest, it doesn't pick up until like the 70% mark. So it's quite a slow burn. But um, as someone who's already, I am such a fan of Gothic literature. I love the like atmosphere, the moody setting, or just sort of how the setting becomes a character. So I feel like even when it was a bit slow, I was still very invested in seeing where the story was going to go. So yeah, I loved it. I thought the writing was great. And now I'm very interested to read more from Daphne du Maurier.
Oh, you said you picked up Hotel Jamaica, right? Did you not?
No.
No,
Mm-mm.
sorry. Maybe I just thought because it's like on here, and I was like, hey, how about this is next anyway?
No, I haven't picked that up, but I was talking to one of my other friends who is on the channel, Zero Shelf Control, and she recommends The Scapegoat, which is sort of, I can't tell you the plot right now, but I know it's similar to like The Talented Mr. Ripley,
Ooh, ooh,
which I love that one. So that's where I might go next.
cool. Oh, fair. Cool.
So what did you think?
Uh, I had like the beginning was really hard for me. I have to say, like I was this close to saying no, can't do it. I felt so trapped, and I think that's on purpose. It's very purposeful, but like I felt so trapped in her inner whining and ramblings, and I was like, it, that was it's I could sorry I see I don't even find my words on this one because like I knew it had a purpose, and but it was maybe so well done that it really pissed me off, and because it was so boring. I was like, get over yourself. Like, okay, we heard you now. Yes, okay, well, get on with it,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see how that was either very well done or me being very sensitive to it. So for me, it's a 3 star
Mm-hmm.
because I had because the beginning was so slow, but also I have a little bit of not an issue, but a thoughts on the ending.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I know this is supposed to be like leaving you all like in the atmosphere and guessing and stuff, but I was like, oh, really?
Uh, I actually do. I love an open ending, so it makes sense why it worked for me so well. I'm like,
Hmm.
I love when things are just left like so loose, but I know that drives a lot of people crazy. Um, but I loved what you said about the setting feeling so trapped while you're reading it, actually, and how like the first like three or two-thirds of the books, you're like feeling so stuck and trapped alongside the character.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons I like I can fully agree with you that it was boring at times, but I find so much like joy from the craft of writing and seeing like how she like utilized the setting and made you feel exactly what she was going through, being just so like miserable stuck in that
Yeah,
situation. It kind of makes you a little bit miserable while reading too.
exactly. And that's why I kept reading it because I knew it was done on purpose. If it okay, I have to okay, stepping now two steps back. If that would be if that would have been a KU book, I might have DNF'd it right away.
Right. So you think kind of the reputation of it was what kept you reading?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair. And yeah, I think the reputation sort of precedes it with this one. And I have to ask you, did you think this was a literal ghost story before you read it?
No.
I did. I was like, where are the ghosts? That was
Yeah,
like,
you told me and I was like waiting for it. I was like, is that the ghost? No, is that the ghost? No. Yeah.
right. Um, I had always heard it described as a ghost story, which um was so interesting to find out that it is not a ghost story
But
in
it
the literal
was
sense.
creepy though.
Yes, yeah. The atmosphere and I think that sense of like dread that you feel throughout the story is what
Right.
makes it so creepy.
Right.
But yeah, we sort of have it's more of Rebecca's haunting the narrative rather than literally haunting the house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just that the memory of her was the haunting and like what's it, Mrs. Denver? Was it what was that the housekeeper's name? Denver? I
Yes.
don't remember. Anyway, um her obsession in the end. Oh, by the way, hey everyone, if you uh 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 thank you and welcoming. But we are talking Rebecca, just so you know, and we are quite deep in the discussion already. If you have any questions, please do ask. Okay, going back to the housekeeper, Denver. Oh yeah, and it's spoiler. We are spoiling this book left, right, center. So if you don't want to be spoiled, maybe you can read the book and come back later.
Yeah. Good point, yes.
Oh yeah, so the her obsession and her being so secretive made it that what but I was like, she's creepy. Why is she creepy? What was she hiding? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way obsession is explored in the novel is just really interesting in general. With Mrs. Danvers, I think it's most fascinating there because you almost can't ever quite figure out why she's so obsessed, other than the fact that she was with Rebecca from her childhood up, so she has that bond with her. But I think we also see the obsession in the unnamed narrator, just the way that Rebecca is always on her mind, um, is
Yeah.
is so interesting.
So that like the way she gets more and more obsessed and it really like the unnamed narrator is also a thing that we have to talk about because like I had to go back a few times be like, do we know her name yet?
No. Um, yeah, that I thought that was a very interesting choice, and I thought it was very purposeful. Um, just throughout the whole story, we see how naive she is, and she's sort of being taken advantage of. which is maybe something we can get into later when we discuss the actual romance of the book. But um, she sort of loses her autonomy in the marriage, and I think that's like a situation.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like a dressing would fit though.
Maybe it would, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, to be fair, we never saw the main narrator. We never saw her autonomous in to begin with like
Hmm.
this caregiver. No, this care relationship she had with the American woman in the beginning. Same
Yes.
thing. She didn't have a voice or much of a personality, to be honest,
Yeah.
either. Like
Exactly.
like I didn't even get her personality even in the beginning, and only by the end I was like, there is something of her shining through, something is coming, but it's also untangible.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I totally agree. And I think by the end, she has this moment. I think it's kind of right around where like the big plot twist is when she finds out sort of what's really going on, when she sort of like snaps up and she's like, I'm not a kid anymore. Like, I need to start acting like someone who could actually be Maxim's wife. And she has
Yeah.
this sort of personality shift, which I think is very interesting. Um,
Also, the tone of the writing and her dialogue changes, and I believe it's right when he confesses to the murder. By the way, people, yes, he murdered the wife. Spoiler, spoiler.
big twist.
um, so this is where I feel like the biggest change in tone of the writing, in herself, in like when she talks to herself as well, happened to me.
Yeah. And I don't entirely like, I guess it's just because it's such a intense thing to happen, like a horrible thing that's like you sort of have to like that's gonna change you. But in terms of like sort of the literary device of it, I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure there's like a lot of things she could be saying with that, but I don't have my own hypothesis.
I think so. I thought a little bit about it, and I think it's finally Rebecca being not on a pedestal anymore, because her whole thing was, oh, Max loved her so much, she was the perfect blah, la 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 la, the whole,
Hmm.
her not feeling good enough, not feeling having a place beside him as his wife, right? And when he confesses to the murder, she goes like, finally, oh, he didn't love her? What, her whole understanding of the world where she's in changed in that moment. And I think that's where maybe some self-assurance
Hmm.
then finally was able to come with her. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, yeah, what was I just gonna say about? Um, oh, I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Sorry.
Something about the tone shift.
Mm.
Lecca,
Yeah,
then killed her, which
yeah.
obviously shows a lot about why she's so complicit in the way the rest of the story goes.
Like, and I wonder where this lack of morality stems from, because the way I understood her past is like she had a normal childhood, just parents died too early, and then she was under the care of this American person. So the lack of morality here, that, like, what she perceives as love and as a happy marriage is more important than, actually confessing a murder. I don't get that. That's something I don't understand in her decision making, because there's no indication earlier that why she would do that.
Yeah. To me, it sort of makes sense as, you know, how we saw her up until that point in the novel, even before she met Maxim. It's again that like lack of self and lack of autonomy. And that moment when she realized she sort of had her foot in the door to place herself in Maxim's life and in Manderley, I think she was so willing to grab it and like gain some sort of sense of self, which she didn't have before, which is twisted to think about that you would be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't care about murder. This is fine."
Yeah.
But I do think that is sort of like the root of the motivation there.
Okay, fair. Fair.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanna go a little bit into, like, since you brought up Mendeley, the house
Mhm.
and the instrumentalization of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I I was going to say I that's just my favorite part about gothic literature, how that the setting becomes like arguably the most important character, and how in Rebecca, Manderley was so important to the story. It almost haunts the narrative as much as Rebecca does herself. Even like the opening line is so famous.
yeah,
The Last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. Like that's the first thing we get is that image of Manderley, and she opens up the novel with these intense descriptions of the gardens and what this beautiful house is like. Um, but it's sort of that facade of it's this beautiful mansion, but what's going on the inside,
yeah,
and that feeling of entrapment.
yeah, yeah. Did you also feel like screaming at the main character, being like, just change one thing, one base, just one thing, do it. Like, like the whole time I was like, just take this base and put it somewhere else. Like, one thing, one.
Yeah, it is like hard to read and see how it's just like so powerless she is, and some of it is self-inflicted. Like she could have moved the vases, she could have told Mrs. Danvers anything she wanted. Like she was the woman of the house after they were married, but she doesn't give herself permission to take that up.
Yeah.
um but
But like she was, like, the way she was, you know, she wanted Menali to be her home, but didn't make it her home, and Menali being like, so it was a blank canvas, and
mhm.
there's it could have been this dream, like, perfect mansion house, whatever. Um, and she was just like, nope, not being part of this.
Yeah, I think that also like so heavily again reflects her naivety, but also it really made me conscious of the age gap in their relationship, of how reading it, like you very clearly get the sense that she's a young woman and she was probably, I mean, definitely was not ready to be thrust into something like that. And I think it's just like it's so emphasized. It's like not only she feels inadequate because of her name, but she feels like she literally doesn't have the power to be like, this is my house, I run this house. She doesn't think she has the ability to do that, and it's like that's so clearly the thought of a younger woman.
Yeah, definitely. Also, and the first thing where I go, like, this husband person um didn't do his due diligence, to be honest. Like, he just changed some rooms, didn't tell her about. That's the first thing we know about them in a not really first thing, but them really in like being husband wife in the new setting of Meneley. The first thing she knows is something he didn't even share with her. And again,
Right.
it's all it's again, centered around the house.
Hmm.
I found that really prominent because it shows so many like, I don't believe it's a romance, by the way. I don't think the book is a romance novel.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not. Absolutely. It's just him being like so grooming.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. It is not a romance novel, which is so crazy that it's marketed as um, being such a fantastic romance novel. I think it's sort of similar to when people describe Wuthering Heights as a romance novel.
Yeah,
It's like no, um, but yeah, I agree totally. It's the grooming and it's just like how we see them transitioning from getting married and where is it? They're in like Italy, and then when they go to Manderley, and it's just complete 180. Like he
exactly.
never gives her like the proper tour, and he doesn't properly introduce her into the lifestyle. He kind of
Yeah.
just leaves her there to fend for herself.
Yeah, they have this like dream like honeymoon thing, and it's all like, oh, I thought it's gonna be disaster because she's like half his age, I would say, huh?
Right.
Um, and he I mean, he says it in like in the before they get married that he is way too old for her. He knows. He goes in fully aware. So then Italy is all nice, and I was like, oh, okay, well, fine, cool. And then they come to Mendeley, and he goes completely silent on her. Like like basically, here, doll, sit here, and I go do my thing.
Hmm. Yeah, which is another reason why I don't see it as a romance. I think
Yeah,
even in the end, when she sort of throughout that big like climax and the tone shift, when she they sort of have more of a partnership in their like conjoined lives, but I think it's completely rooted in manipulation, and I think that was sort of the whole point of the marriage to begin with. Like, yes, it sort of made him look bad that he got remarried so quickly. Like, it's not even a year after Rebecca's death, but I think in other ways it made him look sort of like more of a family man. It's like the image he wants to create. Like, here's his wife, and
yeah,
there's like positions he puts her in where she has to like speak for
perform.
him. Yeah, perform. Exactly. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, and I was in my head, I'm not sure if you had the same thought, but in my head, I'm like, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, do not get pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the end, she's still trapped there anyway. So I don't know that it makes
No,
that
not
much
because of
difference.
the entrapment, because I believe with her being so young, him handling the situation horribly, and she not being able to like get used to her environment, put another responsibility on her that would like, poor child. That's what I thought.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
She would not have been able to handle. And I'm really happy that we don't see any sort of like pregnancy whatever indication in the end either.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sort of just the way you're talking about that reminds me exactly of the book Rosemary's Baby. Did you read
Yeah.
that?
No, I haven't. I
That's sort
can't.
of
I'm really bad at horrors. I can't.
right. I forgot that. That one is a similar sort of like worst case scenario pregnancy trapped in a bad environment. Um, but I think it's sort of bringing me along the talking points of thinking about Rebecca as
Yeah.
like such a classic horror novel and how it sort of became part of that canon. Um, I think in general, and I'm no expert on this, so I don't know exactly. Like I this was published in the 30s, I believe, correct?
Yeah,
Uh,
28, I think. 30, no, 34.
okay,
Mm.
but I think just in general, looking at classic horror, like what comes to mind is Daphne du Maurier or Shirley Jackson. We see like a lot more themes around women in environments like this, especially in Gothic literature, how it sort of becomes a symbolic way of looking at domestic abuse. So I sort of went into the novel thinking about that while reading it, but I think you mentioned that you weren't really familiar with that being a concept. So how does that frame the way you look at the novel after having finished it?
Oh, yeah. So, who I think it's a really good representation of like emotional and psychological psychological abuse. Like it is what that's what it is. He's abusing his um age and position and position of power, definitely to keep her in her place.
Mhm.
She can there's like, while I was really annoyed with with her ramblings, there's also no way for her to like grow and move away from that. There's no ally anywhere there. So yeah, I thought that was, it was really well done how isolated and trapped
Yeah.
she was in that house. That was really well done how Du Maurier did that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Sort of like it's blocking the sunlight from her being able to grow. Like she's very much stifled. She's stuck. She's trapped. Um, and that I think that's a very common thing throughout Gothic literature of that feeling of being trapped in a house, um, or just confined in any environment where you just like can't breathe,
Yeah.
can't grow, can't escape. Um, and yeah, I thought it was so well done here, especially having such like a young narrator. And I mean, this one I think is even more literal because it is sort of dealing with a marriage. You can very much make those connections of a very poor marriage that has
Yeah.
not done well.
Oh my God, yes. Um, what do you think about like now, like thinking about this Gothic setting and it being a Gothic um book? What do you think then about the end? Because I don't feel like the end is typically like Gothic.
That's interesting. I don't know. I'm like, hmm, how would I have ended it in a perfect world? I don't know. But maybe that's also because I did quite like the ending. With everything going up in flame, there's
Yeah.
uh, this like very like definitive ending to that space and that entrapment. But yet at the same time, not really because she's very much still with Max and they
Yeah.
are
But on a different footing. She's now with
yes.
Max, and that's what I mean. She is not necessarily entrapped as she was before, and she
Right.
has a different voice now.
Yeah.
And she can totally screw him over by telling everyone that he murdered his wife. But you know, there's a different. I think we are seeing a different, or maybe I want to see, not we, but like there's a different power dynamic now because of
Yes.
that.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think there definitely is a shift in power and dynamic, but I sort of still see her as being trapped. So maybe that's where my perspective is different. Because I think yes, in a way, she got everything she wanted. Like, she is now with Maxim. She has this way of keeping him by her side, but at the end of the day, he is by her side, and
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever well, okay, let me back up. In a world where we sort of don't know how the story ends after that, who's to say he would not murder her? However, I think we sort of know that he doesn't, since the novel loops back around in the beginning.
Right.
Um, she has this ability to reflect on the years of Manderley, so at least in some form, she's at least not dead. We know that.
Yeah. Well, like I read a little bit about because I thought that ending when they are in exile, and I want to talk about the exile specifically because everyone says no. The like in there's an afterword in this book, and I had a different interpretation to the ending, and maybe you had that too. So the last chapter is when they're in exile, so somewhere at the coast doing their, daily routine, and everything is sort of bleak.
Hmm.
And the it's supposed to be them being morally exiled, that they exiled themselves because of the guilt, whatever. And
Mm.
I don't agree with that. I mean, think about it. Wouldn't you want to spend your retirement years, which they are in now, because they are both not in their normal lives anymore, with your husband having a really cool coastal town life? For me, this morally guilty thing doesn't shine through in the end. While yes, they have a routine. It might not be super exciting, but like as a retirement option, I think it sounds pretty neat.
That's that's true. Honestly, I hear what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, I would love to be retired like that. um, I think the ending, I can sort of still see. I see the exile in a way, and it sort of reminds me of like Macbeth and the way they the marriage there came together, and they executed their morally, I was gonna say morally gray, but not just straight up like
No.
morally black plans.
Yeah.
um, and how it's like seeing that blood on your hands at all times, like it sort of haunts you forever. And I think that's why even if they got away with it, they can't ever really escape it. They have to live with what they did. And I think this, like the very last line, it says, "The road to Manderley lay ahead. There was no moon. The sky above our heads was inky black, but the sky on the horizon was not dark at all. It was shot with crimson, like a splash of blood, and ashes blew towards us with the salt wind from the sea." I think it's painting that picture of that, just like you said, it's just horribly bleak. Like no moon in the sky. It's inky black, and she's sort of seeing the blood there, and I think that's the guilt that she just has to live with now.
Okay. I concede to that. However, I don't see, like, for me, when I read this, I didn't understand why they were in exile, why they had to leave the area at all, because they were cleared by the police, they were cleared by the doctor. Only them knew what actually happened. Well, there's this Jack guy who had his, Annie's in a twist about it, but like there was not really a societal pressure for them to leave. There was no one pointing, we or the society didn't point the finger at them, be like, oh, we don't believe
Right.
the police or whatever. There was no accusation. So in my mind, I'm like, well, okay, Mendeley with Rebecca's memories burnt down. The ghost is gone, basically. You can start anew, and you just chose to not do it there, but you could have theoretically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true that like they did fully get away with it. Like no one
Yep.
at the end of the novel is accusing them. Um So I think they could have stayed, but I think it's that fear of, like, when you know you did something wrong and it's like it could always come back. Like,
Okay.
but yeah, I don't know. I think it's so interesting that we both can read it in different ways because I think both are pretty valid interpretations.
Yeah. No, I
Which
did like I see where your interpretation is coming from, and I see it being one of the options, and that's the nice thing about that being so open.
Mhm.
Um, I just I like I want to question if my sense of morality is having them feeling guilty, or if they actually do feel guilty because I'm not seeing it in the pages per
Mm.
se. That's what I mean.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Honestly, maybe it is just like me being like, well, if I did that, I would feel guilty.
Yeah.
I guess we don't explicitly know. Um, yeah, I guess we don't know. I think I'm assuming that a little bit, but it is interesting to think about.
Oh. I got really stuck on that one.
I I want to know what you think about how the novel loops back around at the beginning because I like did not think about that at all until you pointed it out.
Yeah. Oh, I really love the closed loop because
Hmm.
that's the only closure we are getting.
Right, right.
That's the only I like that, and I like that we already know. No, it was really no. Mm-mm. When I started the novel, for me the beginning was very confusing. I was like, am I having having trouble understanding the English because I'm not a native? Am I
Right.
not understanding where we are, what it is, what we are doing right now?
Hmm.
But like the ending, then gave me a closure. But in the beginning, I was completely confused.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's so fair. But yeah, I really like how it loops back around. I think that just makes for a more interesting, well-rounded picture of the novel and how we get a closure in a way in that we know she's still alive and obviously because she's able to reflect back, but we don't know exactly where she is or how long has passed or really anything that happened obviously after. So I think it does sort of leave room for you to put your own thoughts in there, um, which I think is fun. I enjoy that.
You know what I'm now thinking about? See, we both saw this switch in tone of her when she got her some of her power back. I wouldn't say all of it, but like some of her, and she gets a personality. I'm wondering, like, if I would read the beginning now, if I would see the tone differ from that, beginning scene to when the book actually starts with her being in the south of France.
Hmm.
And maybe that's one of the reason why I was so confused. Maybe the tone even changed in those two beginnings. I
Yeah,
have to go back. I have to go back. It's just a theory. I don't know. So
yeah,
because
that's interesting.
yeah,
Right, because if she had that shift at the latter half of the book, but in the beginning, it's circling back to being her in the later years. So
exactly.
you would think you would see some sort of remnant of that there, but I don't know. We have to do a reread to see, I
Yeah.
guess.
At least. I mean, it's like 3 pages. I would be interested. I'll do it later, and I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know.
So, do you think this book has a place in like the classics? Is it like does it have its place there?
I think so, but obviously I'm a little biased as I did rate it 4 stars, so I do have a, a preferable opinion of it. So I'll be interested to hear what you have to say. But I do think in just the craft of it, like it is so well written, it's so well put together. um, and how everything sort of, not that a book has to be like perfectly packaged and loop around for it to be good, but I think it shows her the skill of her writing, um, and how I think we could look at it in two ways of like classics in general or classic horror, classic gothic, which I say like without a doubt it belongs in that classic horror, classic gothic canon. But classics in general, I feel like I have such like a vague, and it's like so many things could be a
Yeah,
classic. So
yeah.
in my mind, I'm sort of like, sure, why not? But I think it does stand up against other classics that are not just gothic, um, in in the way, again, the writing, but the way she utilizes such a boring blank slate of a character to say so much in the novel, I think is really masterful. Um,
Yeah,
so that's my opinion.
yeah, the this the main narrator that almost comes without a personality against someone who is not even part of the book, Rebecca, just in memories, being such a lively person, um, is like it's. I agree with you on that one. It's really well done. However, do you think so? For me, a classic has to stand the test of time. You know, it has to be as good today as it was like 200 years ago.
Hmm.
Do you think that's still true for Rebecca?
I do think so. I think it's very obviously like of a time that we are no longer in, but I do think sort of the underlying feeling of being trapped in a situation in a marriage like this sort of does continue on long after this novel. Like we're seeing it in much different ways in the modern time, but I think we can look at it through that lens of how it was written in the 30s. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that take. Also, I did when I did like 5 minutes of research on this book, like not really profound. But what I found really interesting is that like Rebecca is said to be an influence to like modern day thrillers where the dead vibe is like a thing, like Gone Girl and the others that followed that trend. And then
Hmm.
that I found really interesting that it had like such a wide ranging like influence into even this part of our literature world. I didn't know. Like to be honest, I
Yeah.
didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another great point of how like I guess another like pillar of like is it where they have a classic status is that it has influenced so much work that came after it, and I think Gone Girl is a great one to compare it to of um that sort of like the way you've read Gone Girl, correct?
No, I haven't. I
Oh,
haven't.
okay.
Yeah.
I won't say anything, but there's sort of a haunting the narrative quality to both of them,
Yeah.
and the way both of the wife characters, Rebecca and Amy in Gone Girl, are morally gray. Because I think that's maybe something we didn't even touch on.
No.
The character of Rebecca herself, of how she is so she's a very interesting character.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone in the house, or I guess most people, um, loved her, and they had this image of her of she's so nice, she hosts these parties, she's the perfect wife. And then we see how Maxim viewed her and the things she was doing.
Yeah.
Uh, she's not she's not just this like perfect wife who died. She had a lot going on behind the scenes.
Like if you would read Rebecca with feminist goggles, like I think she was very advanced for the time that this place is in, and I think in that regard, I wouldn't say she was super morally gray. She just didn't give much of a shit about like societal pressures, and that
Yeah.
was like the more I knew about her, the more I liked her, because in the beginning I didn't like I was like I didn't don't okay, you wear this vibrant person, but you don't really care. But the more I knew about her, that she was like, you know what, I do what I want, and then and I'm not letting my husband tell me anything, or let me, and let my husband entrap me, which he does with the narrator, right? Um, I really like you. I feel like you get really to like her, at least from our point of view today, us as women looking at her.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I think that is a great point. I think I was sort of viewing her the way Maxim does, because the way he speaks about her, he makes it seem like she
Yeah,
is this sort of problem. And but when you actually try to remove yourself from like the bias of the narrator and Maxim, I think what you're saying is true, and how they were in a very clear arrangement. Like Maxim knew what Rebecca was doing, and it
he
was
gave
sort of
her a
more.
freaking little hut for it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like he they went into this agreement together that he needs a wife for the house and to uphold this image, and she, I can't remember exactly why she was, it just sort of like the luxury of like, all right, I'm in this comfortable life and I can do what I want. Was that sort of her reasoning?
Yeah, I think she grew up with privilege, and
Hmm.
I think that just went on.
Hmm. Right. But yeah, yeah, and there's I think they had a very clear agreement that at some point Maxim decided he didn't like it anymore, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I was.
Yeah, true. I agree with that one.
Hmm.
Um, Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, like the to Max, we didn't really talk about him that much either. Really quickly, he is a manipulative murderer. No,
Yeah, yeah.
there's
Um,
nothing morally gray or positive about him.
no, and I think the narrator, as she tells us the story, tries to make us view it that way. Of, I don't know, maybe it's just in the fact that she's so like, okay, whatever, he murdered someone, and she moves on past it, that it sort of tries to trick you into being like, maybe it was justified, but when you sit back, you're like, no, that was actually cold blooded, and
Yeah.
um, I don't there there was never a point where I was like, oh well, it was just Rebecca, like that was a one time thing for him or whatever. I'm like, who knows what else he's done? Like
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
not a good man.
No. Same with like she wanted him to be the victim in all of this so badly. I think her own like for her own good basically.
Hmm.
Oh, she was the adulteress, and she uh behaved this certain way, and was really mean to him, la 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 la. I don't I think she needed to do that, but even when I read it, I was like, girl,
Right.
no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting how like reading through a particular narrator makes you have to view it through their eyes. And
Mhm.
but yeah, I think when you just take one step back, you're like, no, no, actually, no.
No. Exactly. Even if I mean, we know now she was sick, la 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 la, but even if she would have been pregnant with someone else's kid and all that stuff, even if, and he had all this rage and felt all this betrayal all of a sudden, although he didn't give a shit for the last 10 years or 20 years, however long they were married, right? Even if all of that, there's no there's no scenario where I would have felt like he is the victim.
Yeah, no. not even a little bit. And
No.
um I also have like I had the forethought of, I know you're not a Swiftie, but there is a Taylor Swift song that was inspired by Rebecca, which is, the whole song is about like such an unhappy marriage and about how like a man can just do nothing and like not even acknowledge your presence and how that weighs on you. So I think I obviously knew that song in advance to reading the book. And so I kind of went into it with a bias against Max
Yeah.
being, I know you're bad.
No, he was, even in the beginning of their, when they started dating, acquaintances, he was never good. He was always dismissive of this main narrator, even if like he tried to save her from this American like godmother, whatever she was, right? Um, I know he was supposed to look a little bit like this savior, taking her out of this situation, putting her into a better one,
Hmm.
but he never did it with any sort of grace or kindness or anything you would want from a good character, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's bad from the start. And I think had he not even been involved in the murder, I still wouldn't have liked him.
No, yeah, because he was a horrible, horrible husband.
Yeah, just awful.
Yeah. Oh, you're too young. I can't even talk to you. You're too young, but you married her.
Yeah, like, buddy, it's on you.
Yeah. Oh, this non-sharing, this non, like in general, and now I'm talking about all the books, non-communication tropes. Hate them. Hate
Hey,
them with a passion. Just fucking tell her.
yeah.
Tell him, tell them, tell all the people, please. Just, you have the information, just blah it out.
Right, like, even if, like, sure, he probably was not gonna tell her on page 1 that he murdered his wife, but
Yeah, yeah,
he could have, told her how the house worked and
yeah.
how the customs of living in Manderley or whatever, but it's just so, like, arrogant to assume, like, "Oh, she'll figure it out. Oh, it's not my problem." Like,
Yeah,
you
this
married
whole thing
her.
is not my problem. Like, just go to the housekeeper and tell her what you want. Like, you not once have given her any sort of like reassurance that she really can do that. Show her. Anyway, I have like, don't like him with a little bit of passion.
Right. Yeah, no, I can't imagine anyone reading that and being like, "He was okay."
Yeah, no, no.
No, definitely not. And yeah, I that sort of makes me think of like this relationship with the Mrs. Danvers character, the housekeeper. Um, Again, I think she's one of the most fascinating characters of that, such an intense obsession she has with Rebecca, and
Yeah,
how she's so unaccepting of the narrator because
yeah,
of that. Um, but I thought one of the like standout scenes was that one where she tricks the narrator into the Halloween costume that was the one that Rebecca
yes.
wore previously.
Oh,
So cruel, but
so
so
cool. And you go like,
I
and she, oh, okay. This is finally one of the times where the narrator shows some personality, where she gets like, oh, this is like, oh my, and she's like, show some sort of enthusiasm and motivation to do anything and
mhm,
decide anything for herself. And then it's such a cruel betrayal.
yeah,
And again, in this scene, Max is uh, standing out as such a bad communicator. He could have just said anything, done anything.
hmm, yeah, and just the way he reacted, that so horrible. Like, obviously, she didn't know, but it's he's so much in his own world, and
Yeah.
he doesn't care about what she's going through. It's how it's making him feel. But I think that whole scenario with the costume thing is such like a perfect reflection of how you can look at Rebecca and the narrator as foils of each other. If we're like looking at Rebecca as such this like free, liberated woman who won't conform to the societal norms, the narrator is so submissive or complicit. And I think we see that in she can't come up with her own idea for a Halloween costume. She has to, just like the lack of creativity and just again doing something that someone else told her to do.
Yeah.
Um, and then the way she reacts to, like, yes, the situation was so cruel, but she's just so quick to be like, I'll hide in the room for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
I'll go put on my
Yeah.
blue dress. Um, you can kind of think about Rebecca being in that situation and being like, so what?
So
Suck it
what?
up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And instead of like it being that way, oh, so what, suck it up, and Max being like the 40-year-old guy that he is, not a 3-year-old having a tantrum. Um, it could have been such a non-issue.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we are almost an hour in. Wanna wrap up with like a hot take and your favorite thing? And
Yes. Maybe you go first because now I got to think about
yeah,
it.
hot take for me. The hot take it really is the ending. I think it's not a guilty escape or fleeing the guilt. It's more like well, now Mandalay is not there anymore. The ghost of Rebecca died with the house. Um, let's retire and have a nice life at the coast. That's my hot take on that one.
Right.
One favorite um is actually Rebecca, and looking at through eyes of us today on her, instead of her being the morally gray adulteress. And I don't know what, she's more like a uh, mm, how do you say, like one of the first people being open with her sexuality and
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll say my hot take is I said it was boring and in like I believe that, but I also was never really bored. I was content throughout reading the boring parts. So I guess my hot take is that even the boring wasn't boring. Um, and then my favorite part, hmm, I mean, this is like so obvious, but the twist, because I like didn't really see it coming. Um, I sort of thought I could have believed Max being involved, but I didn't think it would be like a murder. I kind of was thinking it was like an accident and he was covering it up.
Yeah.
So the twist, but like the tone shift with it as well. That was my favorite part.
Yeah, yeah. This is actually a really good point. It that was very very well done. Um, it not making it obvious, but foreshadowing enough that you could believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Marissa, thank you so much for joining. That was so much fun.
Yes,
Like,
I'm so
I
glad we did it.
I actually didn't. Uh, as I said, like I had my problems with it in the beginning, but discussing with you was so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And I love the buddy read. Happy to do one any other time. So you
Yes.
know where to find me. Hit me up.
Hush, hush, hush. I'm still like thinking about it.
Hmm. And that's a sign of a good book if it you can
Yeah.
think about it for a long time after. Yeah.
You have a good weekend and talk to you all soon. Let us know if you have any questions. We are here for questions anytime. and see you next time. Have a
See
good
ya.
one. Bye bye.